Welcome to the Profit Partner Report. Most event conversations focus on logistics and inspiration theater. This one doesn't. To help you stay ahead of the curve, we've used an AI tool to extract the key points and strategic logic from our latest publication. Think of this as a high-level briefing between two expert strategists who have deconstructed our work to find the key drivers of revenue. We're moving past the stagecraft and into the conversion architecture. For the full strategic breakdown and the receipts behind these numbers, visit theprofitpartner.co. Let's listen in.
I want you to take a second and just picture the last major live professional event you went to. Or maybe an industry conference.
Yeah, put yourself right back in that room.
Exactly. Put yourself there. Maybe they had that walk-on music just pulsing through the floorboards at like 8 in the morning.
Complete with the dramatic spotlights.
Right, the spotlights, maybe beach balls bouncing through the crowd, and a keynote speaker doing their perfectly polished, tear-jerking motivational routine.
You probably left feeling pretty energized, right?
Oh, absolutely. But here is the multi-million-dollar question we usually avoid asking.
One that makes everyone uncomfortable.
Yes. Did that event actually make any real money for the people hosting it?
Or was it just a massively expensive, exhausting party masquerading as a business strategy?
Right. And that illusion is exactly what we're tearing down in today's deep dive.
It's a very pervasive illusion in the event space.
It really is. Our mission here is to look past the smoke machines, look past the hype, and examine the hidden high-stakes mechanics of how you actually get a yes in a crowded, noisy world.
And to do this, we are drawing from a really fascinating source today.
We are. It's a highly provocative manifesto called Start Here by Shay Wheat, which is the Profit Partner Report.
It essentially reads the riot act to the traditional event planning industry.
It totally does. It challenges the fundamental ways we even measure a successful gathering. And we should establish right away that this isn't just some theory from an armchair critic.
No, not at all.
Shay Wheat is a certified event producer. She's the CEO of Grace and Ease Productions and the founder of the Certified Event Producer Academy.
She has serious credentials.
For the last decade, she has been the quiet, behind-the-scenes architect for major figures. We're talking Dr. Oz, Saga Levine, Allison Price, Lisa Nichols.
And the claim in this text that really anchors everything we're about to discuss.
Oh, the revenue number.
Right. Shay and her team have generated over $37 million in revenue for their clients.
$37 million.
Which proves we are looking at a battle-tested methodology here. When you're operating at that scale, you aren't relying on luck.
Or a good playlist.
Exactly. You are relying on a highly calibrated system.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because right at the top of the report, Shay drops a pretty bold statement. She says, most people in the event industry are lying to you.
That's a strong hook.
It is. And the lie, according to her, is this pervasive idea that if the lighting is perfect, the music is high vibe, and the speaker is inspiring, well, the sales will just magically take care of themselves.
And anyone who has actually run a major event knows they absolutely won't.
Never.
The text sets up this core dichotomy to explain why. On one side, you have what Shay calls inspiration theater.
I love that term.
It's very descriptive.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you have conversion architecture. The gap between those two is where millions of dollars are just routinely lost.
Let's dig into inspiration theater first. The text describes this as the trap of relying almost entirely on vibes.
The aesthetic approach.
Right. It's this false belief that just elevating someone's mood is the same thing as having a conversion strategy.
Which it isn't.
You curate the perfect aesthetic. You get the dramatic lighting, and you just sit back and cross your fingers. You're just hoping those warm, fuzzy feelings will spontaneously translate into people buying your high-ticket consulting package.
Or signing up for your mastermind. It is literally the business equivalent of hoping for the best.
Exactly. It's like throwing a $100,000 catered gala for 500 people and then completely forgetting to engineer a way for anyone to actually do business with you afterward.
You entertained them, but you didn't connect the experience to a meaningful next step.
You just threw a party.
And what's fascinating here is the secondary consequence of this approach, which the source explicitly calls out, the massive burnout factor.
Oh, the Tuesday morning crash.
Yes, this isn't just about lost revenue. Inspiration theater is the exact reason why so many brilliant founders and planners find themselves completely destroyed by Tuesday morning following a weekend event.
Because the traditional logistics-first model treats an event as an endless checklist of aesthetics.
The caterer, the AV team, the floral arrangements, the swag bags.
You're pouring all your bandwidth into managing the production, so by the time it comes to the actual business objective,
A pitch or the networking.
right, you have absolutely nothing left in the tank.
Precisely. You are treating the event as a theatrical production rather than a strategic business ecosystem.
But I have to play devil's advocate for just a second here.
Go for it.
Isn't the vibe actually important? I mean, if you run a sterile, boring, purely corporate seminar, people are going to check out mentally before you ever even get to your pitch.
Well, that's a fair point. And the text isn't arguing that you should host your event in some windowless basement with flickering fluorescent lights.
Okay, good.
The argument is that the vibe is a tool. It's not the strategy itself.
A tool, not the strategy.
Right. When the aesthetic becomes the primary focus, rather than just a supporting element of the conversion process, that is when you start bleeding cash.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Shay introduces her $37 million solution to this exact problem, which is conversion architecture.
Replacing the theater with actual structure.
Yes. She argues that events that actually move the needle financially are built, not thrown. And to build that architecture, the text introduces a critical, often entirely missing role in the industry.
The profit partner.
The profit partner.
The report notes that event hosts are leaving massive amounts of money on the table because this specific strategic role is completely vacant.
Because typically you have the visionary host who wants to change lives and make money.
And you have the logistical planner who wants to make sure the microphones work and the chicken is warm.
Right, there is a massive gap in the middle.
A huge gap. And the text lays out two very distinct mandates for you, depending on where you sit in that dynamic.
Yeah, if you are an expert or a host, the person whose name is actually on the marquee, you have to stop hosting expensive parties.
You need to transition to building revenue ecosystems.
Revenue ecosystems, which requires a fundamental shift in how you view your audience.
You have to stop seeing them as an audience to be entertained and start treating them as intelligent partners in a business transaction.
And the second mandate is for the planners and producers out there.
This one is crucial.
The text argues that in today's sophisticated market, just managing logistics is no longer enough to justify your fee.
It's not enough anymore.
You either need to actively partner with a profit partner, or you need to evolve into one yourself.
You have to shift from being a manager of things to an architect of results.
I really like that framing. Manager of things to architect of results.
So if we are moving away from theater and into architecture, we need to look at the actual blueprints.
Yes, let's get into the blueprints. Because the deepest and most crucial part of this manifesto outlines the three foundational pillars of this methodology.
She calls it the architecture of the yes.
Which implies that a yes isn't a spontaneous emotional reaction. It's a destination you have deliberately paved a road toward long before the attendee even registered.
That's the essence of the architecture.
Let's really break down these three pillars because this is where the actual mechanics of a $37 million strategy live.
Absolutely. Let's start with the first one.
The first pillar states you must understand what must be seen for an offer to feel valuable.
Notice the specific phrasing there. What must be seen.
Right.
In the old inspiration theater model, being seen means the flashy graphics or the giant LED wall on stage.
The visual spectacle.
Exactly. But in conversion architecture, being seen is about the absolute clarity of the value proposition.
Okay, but what does that actually look like in practice? How do you make the value of an intangible service or like a high-ticket mastermind visually and intellectually apparent to people?
It comes down to a concept called seeding.
Seeding.
A profit partner doesn't wait until 4 p.m. on Sunday to just drop a $10,000 offer out of nowhere.
Because that creates whiplash.
It does. Instead, they reverse engineer the entire event schedule.
Oh, that makes sense.
If the core of your premium offer is a specific operational framework, you teach the foundational models of that framework on day one.
You plant the seeds.
Right. You showcase case studies of that exact framework working on day two. By the time you actually make the offer on day 3, the audience has literally seen the undeniable value of the solution at work for 3 full days.
The value proposition is just woven right into the curriculum.
Exactly.
That makes so much sense. You aren't springing a trap on them at the end. You are walking them up a staircase.
Yes.
If they can't clearly see the tangible transformation you are offering, No amount of high-energy walk-on music is going to distract a savvy professional from the fact that you haven't proven your ROI.
They'll see right through it. Which brings us to the second and arguably most critical pillar of the architecture.
That's weird.
The text states, you must understand what must be felt for a decision to feel safe.
Safety. I'll be honest, when I think of high-stakes, high-ticket live events, safety is definitely not the first word that comes to my mind.
It rarely is. And this raises an important question for you, the listener.
Yeah, think about this.
Think about the psychology of how you make a significant financial investment. When you are asked to part with a large sum of money or commit your valuable time, what makes you feel truly secure in that specific moment?
It's usually having time to think, right?
Exactly. Now, contrast that with the traditional boiler room event model we saw dominate the last decade.
Oh, I know exactly what you were talking about.
We all do.
The doors literally physically close. The aggressive music swells in the background. The speaker creates this artificial sense of extreme urgency.
Rush to the back of the room right now or this discount disappears forever.
Yes. It totally triggers a fight-or-flight response. You feel like you are being backed into a corner by a used car salesman.
And biologically, you're in fight or flight. That high-pressure tactic relies entirely on triggering anxiety and the fear of missing out.
It's awful.
It is a hostile environment masquerading as an exclusive one.
So true.
Now, can that tactic force a one-off sale in the moment?
Unfortunately, yes.
Sometimes, yes, it does.
But the text argues that is a terrible long-term strategy, right?
Terrible. Because what happens the very next day?
Buyer's remorse.
Massive buyer's remorse,
Oh, right.
high refund rates, churned clients who resent you and your brand.
It's just not sustainable.
Shea's architecture argues that for an attendee to confidently say yes, and actually stay a yes, the underlying emotional current of the room cannot be panic.
It has to be safety.
It must be safety.
So how does a profit partner actually architect safety? Because it can't just be having really comfortable chairs and good lighting.
No, it's structural. It means giving people the physical and mental space to think.
Space to process.
Yes, it means crystal clear, accessible Q&A sessions where objections aren't just dismissed by a fast-talking host, but actually answered.
Addressed directly.
It means transparent pricing tiers, clear guarantees, and perhaps most importantly, giving attendees the time to actually review the contract without a salesperson breathing down their neck.
Because if they don't feel psychologically secure, their defenses just stay up.
Exactly. When the environment is safe, the attendee feels their unique problems are understood and the risks are mitigated.
It totally shifts the goal from hyping them up to break down their objections.
To making them feel secure enough to make a rational choice.
I love that. And that leads us perfectly into the third and final pillar of the architecture of the yes.
The third pillar.
The text says you must understand what must be understood for the enrollment to be high integrity.
High integrity enrollment. This is where we completely leave behind the idea of the slick, fast-talking closer.
I really want to highlight this because sometimes in the business world, we treat basic transparency like it's some revolutionary moral high ground.
Right.
But the text frames this high integrity approach strictly as a superior business mechanic.
And it is. Obfuscating your deliverables is amateur hour.
It really is.
If you hide the ball on what your program actually entails just to get that initial credit card swipe, you are going to get crushed by chargebacks.
Oh, yeah. Complaints, reputational damage.
Exactly.
We've all seen those pitches where the speaker does a 45-minute emotional roller coaster talking all about their rags to riches story.
The hero's journey.
Right. But when they finally drop the price at the very end, you still have absolutely no idea what you are actually buying.
None.
Are you getting one-on-one coaching? A PDF? A software license?
And a professional audience simply will not tolerate that anymore. They just won't.
No.
Respecting your audience's intelligence means the mechanics of the solution must be undeniably understood.
There are no hidden fees, no confusing terms, no bait and switch.
The architecture demands that the expectations and the timeline are completely transparent.
Basically saying, you get X, it costs Y, and it requires Z amount of your time.
Exactly. The attendee says yes, because they fundamentally understand how the mechanics of your offer map directly to their specific friction points.
It makes logical sense to them.
When an offer is truly valuable, when the environment is genuinely safe, and when the terms are completely understood, you do not need to force a sale.
The conversion simply becomes the logical next step of the experience.
The architecture does all the heavy lifting for you.
It is a complete paradigm shift. You are essentially designing the psychology of the room before you ever even pick out the venue.
Long before.
And speaking of the room, that brings us to the final, incredibly forward-looking section of this manifesto.
Yes, the recommended reading list.
Shay includes a list of recommended reading right at the bottom of her publication, and the titles alone give us a huge window into the broader strategy here.
They really do. If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Let's do it.
the titles Shay highlights are Why Live Events Belong in Your Business Strategy, Death of the Task Economy, and perhaps the most crucial one for the current moment.
The real competitive advantage in the AI era.
Yeah.
That last point is actually pretty contrarian. I mean, in a world completely obsessed with artificial intelligence and digital marketing, you would assume the ultimate competitive advantage would be algorithmic.
You would think so.
But the claim pulled from that reading is that in the AI era, the real competitive advantage isn't a better digital funnel, it's a physical room.
It makes perfect sense when you look at current market trends.
How so?
Wow, we are living in a moment of infinite digital noise.
That is an understatement.
AI can generate thousands of perfectly optimized emails, landing pages, and social media posts in seconds.
It's everywhere.
The digital funnel, as a concept, is becoming entirely commoditized because the barrier to entry for digital marketing is now basically zero. Consumer trust in digital-only interactions is absolutely plummeting.
Because you literally don't know if you are talking to a human expert, reading human ideas, or just interacting with a language model.
Exactly, which ties right into the death of the task economy.
Right?
If your entire event planning business is just managing logistical tasks,
Sending the emails, booking flights, ordering the catering,
automation's going to eat your lunch.
it's already happening.
The tasks are commoditized. The funnels are commoditized. So what is the only remaining unfair advantage?
What's left?
What is the one thing AI fundamentally cannot replicate or fake?
Physical presence.
Being in a shared space with other human beings.
Yeah.
Live events, as Shay points out, are the most powerful trust-building tool you have left in your arsenal.
And this is the massive caveat that ties this entire deep dive together.
The big catch.
That physical presence only acts as an advantage if the room is built on conversion architecture, not inspiration theater.
Because if you leverage that rare, valuable in-person trust just to run a high-pressure, low-integrity playbook,
You will destroy your reputation faster than you built it.
without a doubt,
You are just exposing your lack of substance in person.
the room amplifies whatever you put into it.
Wow, yes.
If you put in a solid architectural blueprint, it amplifies trust and revenue.
And if you put in hot air.
It amplifies the disappointment.
So what does this all mean? Let's distill this down for you listening right now.
Bringing it all together.
Whether you are a visionary expert planning a massive 3-day industry summit, or you are a manager just trying to design a high-stakes quarterly planning meeting,
The mandate from this manifesto is clear.
you have to stop relying on inspiration theater. You have to stop believing that just managing the logistics and curating a good vibe is enough to drive real, measurable action.
You need to start thinking like a profit partner.
Exactly. You have to meticulously design the architecture of the us.
You have to ensure that the value of the outcome is clearly seen,
That the psychological safety to make a decision is deeply felt.
and that the integrity of the offer is fully understood.
And for anyone ready to make that operational leap, Shay actually leaves an open invitation in the text.
She does.
She invites you to move past the exhausting grind of logistics and step into the strategic depths of architecture.
She mentions her paid membership in the report.
Right, where she and her team literally open up the blueprints of those $37 million client builds.
Showing you the exact strategic pivots that actually move the needle.
It is a compelling proposition for anyone who recognizes that the old way of running events is rapidly losing its effectiveness.
It really is. And as we wrap up our analysis of this report, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own.
Something to think about.
Something that builds directly on these insights about our increasingly automated world.
Let's hear it.
If physical presence and getting people into the room are truly the ultimate trust-building tools in a noisy, AI-saturated landscape,
Yeah.
how are you designing the rooms you enter every day? Even the smaller, everyday meetings. Are you just setting up the lighting, running through an agenda, and hoping for the best?
Us managing tasks?
Or are you deliberately designing a space where the people around you feel genuinely safe enough and informed enough to confidently say yes to your ideas?
That is a phenomenal question to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a great conversation.
Keep questioning the architecture behind the experiences you encounter every single day, and we will catch you on the next one.
That concludes today's briefing. In this industry, the lines are being redrawn. You either need to hire a profit partner or you need to become one. If you're a host, this is your invitation to move beyond expensive parties and start building revenue ecosystems that respect your audience's intelligence. And if you're a planner, it's time to move past the grind of logistics and step into the architecture of results. The conversation continues at theprofitpartner.co. Access our strategic perspectives for free to go behind the curtain of our proprietary strategies and frameworks and see the strategic pivots that actually move the needle for both the stage and the bottom line. I'm Shay Wheat. Thanks for being in the room. I'll see you in the next deep dive.